The stars shimmered beyond the viewport as Mary stared out at the vast emptiness of space. Her brown eyes reflecting the distant lights of alien suns. She was the only human for 12 systems in any direction. The massive ship hummed around her, a living thing of metal and energy built by the Vexari, a race of towering insectoid aliens who had dominated this sector for millennia. Mary sighed, pulling her red hair into a tight ponytail before returning to her station. The aliens around her stood nearly 8 feet tall, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the artificial lights. They moved with surprising grace. Despite their size, Commander Tella approached her, mandibles clicking. In what Mary had learned was amusement's Mall 1. "You seem troubled," the commander said, her translator rendering the complex clicks and whistles into understandable speech. Mary shook her head, smiling up at the alien who towered over her. "Just homesick, Commander. Nothing serious." Tella tilted her head, a gesture she had adopted from observing humans. "Your kind always fascinate me, so physically fragile. Yet you venture among the stars with such confidence." Before Mary could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship, red warning lights flashing along the corridors. "Attention, unidentified vessel approaching at combat speed. All personnel to battle stations." This is not a drill. Mary rushed to her station as the crew mobilized around her, her hands flying over the control panels. Scans show 8 unknown vessels approaching, fast weapons. "Hot," Commander Tella announced, her voice calm despite the danger in screen. The alien ships appeared sleek and predatory, their design unfamiliar to Mary. "Open a channel." Mary suggested standard greeting protocols. Tella nodded to the communications officer, but the response came in the form of energy weapons. The first blast rocked the ship, throwing several crew members to the floor shields. Holding at 70%, the tactical officer reported damage to outer hull sections. Mary analyzed the attack pattern, noting something familiar about their approach. "Commander, these ships are using an old Earth naval tactic, dividing our defensive fire." Tella looked at her with newfound interest. "Explain." "They split their forces to attack from multiple vectors, forcing us to divide our defensive capabilities," Mary said, pointing to the tactical display. "You can see they maintain precise formation, despite appearing to attack randomly." Tella considered this information, then barked orders to her crew: "Reconfigure shields based on the human analysis. Concentrate fire on the lead vessel." The Vexari crew worked quickly, following the commander's instructions, their earlier dismissal of the small human forgotten in the heat of battle. Another blast hit the ship, this time knocking out the main power grid. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows throughout the bridge. "Main weapons offline, shield generator failing," the tactical officer reported. Mary thought quickly, remembering something from her studies of Vexari technology. "Commander, the auxiliary power coupling can be rerouted through the secondary shield grid. It's an old design feature rarely used." Tella hesitated for only a moment before ordering her engineering team to implement Mary's suggestion. The attackers pressed their advantage, closing in for what they clearly expected to be a killing blow, unaware of the desperate measures being taken aboard. The Vexari vessel power surged through the ship as Mary's suggestion worked, the shields flaring back to life just as the enemy fired again. The Vexari vessel shuddered, but held the shields, absorbing impacts that would have otherwise destroyed the ship. "Counterattack." Now, Tella ordered. The Vexari gunners fired with precision. Despite the damage to their systems, 2 enemy ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, the others breaking formation in surprise. On the main screen, a communication request flashed. Mary recognized the language matrix. "Commander, they're trying to communicate." Tella gestured for Mary to handle the transmission. The alien that appeared on screen resembled a reptilian humanoid with scaled skin and vertical pupils, its expression unreadable to Mary. "You fight well for prey," the alien said, its translator struggling with the complex language. "We are the crawl hunters of the void. Surrender your vessel and your deaths will be quick." Mary stepped forward before Tella could respond. "This is Mary Campbell of Earth, serving aboard the Vexari defense vessel Starlight. We do not surrender to pirates or bullies." The crawl commander hissed in what might have been laughter. "A human so far from home. Interesting. Your species is known for its weakness, yet you speak with courage." Mary smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Humans are not defined by our physical strength, but by our adaptability and determination. You attacked the wrong ship today." She nodded to Tella, who understood immediately, all power to forward weapons, the Vexari commander ordered. The crawl ships attempted to scatter, but the Vexari gunners had anticipated this, firing precisely at their escape vectors. 3 more enemy vessels erupted into flames. The remaining crawl ships jumped to faster-than-light travel, fleeing the battle as quickly as they had appeared. The bridge fell silent for a moment before cheers erupted from the Vexari crew. Mary felt a large hand on her shoulder and looked up to see Tella. Her mandibles spread in the Vexari equivalent of a smile. Your tactical insight saved this ship, human. Mary, perhaps your species has strengths we have overlooked. Mary nodded, accepting the rare compliment. We survived on Earth by outthinking predators much larger than ourselves, Commander. It's a habit we never outgrew as the crew began damage control procedures. Mary returned to her station, noting how differently the Vexari now looked at her, with respect rather than dismissal. Tella approached once more, her towering form casting a shadow over Mary's console. The Vexari High Command will hear of your actions today. They have long debated the value of allowing humans into our space fleet. Mary looked up at the commander. And what will you tell them? Tella clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. That sometimes the smallest member of the crew provides the greatest advantage. 6 months after the battle with the Crawl, Mary found herself standing before the Vexari High Council, their enormous chamber designed to intimidate visitors, with its soaring ceilings and massive stone thrones. 5 Vexari elders looked down at her from their elevated positions, their compound eyes glittering in the dim light. Mary stood straight despite feeling small among these giants. We have reviewed your actions during the Crawl attack, the lead counselor said, her voice echoing in the chamber. You demonstrated tactical thinking that saved one of our most valuable ships. Mary nodded, keeping her expression neutral as she had been advised by Tella. Thank you, High Counselor. I only did what any crew member would do. The second counselor leaned forward, chitinous armor creaking with the movement. Yet no Vexari thought to use the auxiliary coupling in that manner. Explain how you, a human, knew of this system. Mary chose her words carefully. During my orientation, I studied the technical specifications of the ship. I noticed the auxiliary system was compatible with the shield grid. It seemed logical that it could serve as a backup. The council members exchanged glances, communicating in their native clicks too fast for Mary's translator to process. The lead counselor spoke again. The Crawl have increased their attacks on our outlying colonies. We believe they are testing our defenses before a larger invasion. Mary remained silent, waiting for them to continue. We have decided to create a new tactical division, one that will incorporate human thinking into our defense strategies. You will lead this division. Mary blinked in surprise. This was unprecedented in Vexari history. High Counselor, I am honored, but surely a Vexari commander would be better suited. The third counselor chittered what Mary recognized as laughter. The Crawl think like Vexari predators seeking the most direct path to victory. We need minds that think differently, unpredictably, human minds. Mary considered the implications. She would be the first human to hold a command position in the Vexari fleet, a responsibility that would place the lives of many aliens in her hands. I accept the position, High Counselor. The council seemed pleased with her response. You will select a team of advisors, both Vexari and human. Your first assignment is to develop defense strategies for the colony on Nexus Prime. Our intelligence suggests it will be the next Crawl target. Mary left the council chamber, her mind racing with the enormity of the task ahead. As she walked through the sprawling Vexari city, she noticed the aliens watching her with newfound curiosity. Tella waited at the transport hub, her tall form easy to spot among the crowd. The council was impressed. With you, little human, she said, following Mary into the shuttle. Mary smiled at the nickname that had once seemed condescending, but now felt almost affectionate. They want me to lead a tactical division. Can you believe that? Tella clicked her mandibles in approval. I recommended you for the position. Our people respect strength, but we are learning to respect intelligence as well. The shuttle departed, carrying them to the military complex where Mary would begin assembling her team. She scrolled through personnel files on her datapad. I need humans who think outside standard military doctrine, she mused, and Vexari who are willing to consider unconventional approaches. Tella pointed to a name on the list. Chris Webber, she served on the Boundary Station. During the Melvaran conflict, creative problem solver. Mary nodded, adding Chris to her selection. The shuttle docked at the military complex, a massive structure of metal and stone that housed the Vexari Fleet Commandover. The next week, Mary interviewed dozens of candidates, assembling a diverse team of tactical thinkers. Her final selection included 3 humans and 4 Vexari, a balance she hoped would blend their different perspectives. Their first strategy session began with reports on crawl movements near Nexus Prime. They attack in standard hunting formations. Frel, the senior Vexari tactical officer, explained, displaying holographic battle records, always targeting what they perceive as the weakest point. Chris Weber, a tall human woman with dark skin and sharp eyes, studied the holograms. Their formations remind me of wolf packs on Earth, predators that coordinate their attacks to exhaust stronger prey. Mary nodded, thinking of Earth history. Ancient human armies faced similar tactical challenges when fighting numerically superior forces. We developed methods to counter them. She activated the holographic display showing a classic defensive formation. The Romans used the testudo formation, a shield wall that protected from all angles. What if we adapted our shield configurations to create overlapping fields? The team worked through multiple scenarios, testing Mary's concepts against simulated crawl attacks. With each iteration, the defense became stronger, more resilient. 2 weeks later, Mary presented their strategy to the High Council. Instead of dividing our forces to match the crawl, we positioned them in clusters with overlapping shield and weapons coverage. She explained, demonstrating with the holographic display. Each cluster supports the others, creating a defense network rather than isolated targets. The Council approved her plan, ordering immediate implementation across the Nexus Prime defense. Grid Mary barely slept in the days that followed, overseeing the reconfiguration of the colonial defense forces. The Vexari engineers worked tirelessly to implement her designs. The 7th-day alarm sounded throughout the command center. Crawl fleet detected approaching Nexus Prime. 15 vessels in attack formation. Mary took her position at the command station, her team surrounding her, both human and Vexari, working in perfect coordination. Deployed defense clusters Alpha through Delta. She ordered activate overlapping shield gridden. The tactical display. The Vexari ships moved into the formations they had practiced, forming the shield network. Just as the crawl attack began, the enemy ships struck hard, expecting to break through isolated defenses. Instead, their weapons fire dissipated across the overlapping shields, unable to concentrate enough force on a single point. The crawl adapted quickly, changing their formation. But Mary's team had anticipated this. They're switching to flanking maneuvers. She noted, just as we predicted, execute countermeasure beta. The defense clusters rotated, maintaining their shield overlap, while bringing additional weapons to bear on the exposed crawl ships. 3 enemy vessels exploded under the concentrated fire. The others pulled back, clearly confused by the unexpected resistance. They're regrouping for another attack, Chris reported. Mary smiled, watching the enemy movements. They still think like predators, looking for weakness. Let them come. The second crawl attack was more cautious, probing for gaps in the defense. Finding none, they attempted to overwhelm a single cluster with superior numbers. No, Mary commanded. The Vexari ships executed a complex maneuver enveloping the attacking crawl in a 3-dimensional tripenemy vessels. Surrounded, the tactical officer announced, weapons locked. Mary opened a communication channel. Crawl vessels, this is Tactical Commander Mary Campbell. Your attack has failed. Surrender or be destroyed. The crawl commander appeared on screen. His reptilian features contorted with rage. Impossible, our intelligence indicated the Vexari defenses were vulnerable. Mary shook her head. Your intelligence failed to account for human tactical innovation. Surrender. Now, after a tense moment, the crawl ships powered down their weapon systems. The battle won without further bloodshed as the crawl commanders were taken into custody. Tella approached Mary on the command deck. The High Council is impressed with your victory, little human, she said, pride evident in her voice. You have proven the value of human perspective. Mary looked around at her team, humans and Vexari working side by side. Not just human perspective, Commander, but what we can achieve when we combine our strengths. News of the victory at Nexus Prime spread quickly throughout the 12 systems of Vexari space. The human Mary Campbell became a name spoken with respect in places where humans had once been seen as little more than curious weaklings. The Crawl. Prisoners revealed troubling information under interrogation. They were merely scouts for a much larger invasion force gathering at the edge of known space. Vexari High Command convened an emergency session summoning Mary and her tactical team to the military headquarters on the Vexari homeworld. Mary stood before the assembled military leaders. Her small human frame a stark contrast to the towering insectoid aliens around her based on prisoner intelligence. We estimate a Crawl battle fleet of over 200 vessels will attack within 30 days. Fleet Admiral Zex announced, her mandibles clicking with concern. Murmurs spread through the gathered officers. The Vexari fleet numbered just 70 ships, even with the colonial defense forces. Mary studied the star charts displaying Crawl movements. They're gathering here at the Haldron Nebula, she noted, pointing to the swirling gas cloud near the border. Hiding their numbers while preparing, Admiral Zex nodded. Correct, Commander Campbell. The nebula interferes with our long-range sensors, preventing accurate assessment of their fleet. Chris Weber, who had become Mary's second-in-command, leaned forward. The nebula presents challenges but also opportunities, she suggested. If we can't scan them, they can't scan us either. Mary developed the thought, what if instead of waiting for their attack, we bring the battle to them on our terms? The Admiral clicked her mandibles skeptically. You suggest attacking a superior force within a nebula that blinds our sensors. Explain your reasoning. Human Mary activated the holographic display showing the nebula in detail. The Crawl are predators by nature and by culture. They expect us to defend, to react. She highlighted several points within the nebula. They won't expect us to hunt them. Over the next hours, Mary outlined a daring plan not to defeat the Crawl through superior firepower, which the Vexari lacked, but through deception and misdirection tactics humans had perfected over millennia of warfare. Against stronger opponents, what you propose is unprecedented, Admiral Zex said when Mary finished it. Violates centuries of Vexari military doctrine. Mary met the Admiral's compound gaze without flinching. With respect, Admiral, following traditional doctrine, against an overwhelming force guarantees defeat. The Crawl expect you to fight like Vexari. We need to fight like humans. After heated debate, the plan was approved, though many Vexari commanders remained skeptical. The fleet began preparations immediately, with Mary and her team training crews in tactics foreign to Vexari military thinking. Chris supervised the modification of scout ships to emit false sensor signatures if each scout can appear as a capital ship on Crawl sensors. She explained to the engineering team, we can create the illusion of a much larger fleet. Mary, meanwhile, worked with the weapons specialists. We need to adapt our energy signatures to match the nebula's radiation. She instructed, effectively hiding our ships until their firing position. Days passed in frantic preparation, the deadline approaching with alarming speed. Mary slept little, pushing herself and her team to perfect every aspect of the plan. Tella found her late one night, still working in the command center. You should rest, little human. The commander advised. The fleet departs tomorrow. Mary rubbed her tired eyes. There's still so much to do. If we miscalculate even slightly. Tella placed a gentle claw on Mary's shoulder. Your plan is sound. You have prepared the fleet as well as possible. Now trust in your strategy and in those who will execute it. Mary nodded, grateful for the commander's confidence. The following morning, the Vexari fleet departed, their homeworld citizens lining the spaceways to watch the massive ships ascend. Mary stood on the bridge of the flagship beside Admiral Zex, feeling the weight of responsibility for the thousands of lives under her command. 3 days later, they reached the edge of the Haldron Nebula, its swirling gases, casting eerie lights across the viewports. Deploy scout ships in pattern Alpha. Mary ordered time to see if our deception works. 20 small vessels broke formation, spreading out in a carefully choreographed pattern, each broadcasting sensor signatures that mimicked capital ships, creating the illusion of a massive fleet approaching the nebula deep. Within the gaseous clouds, Crawl sensors detected the approaching force exactly as Mary had predicted. Crawl forces moving to intercept the tactical officer reported. Their formation suggests they believe our scouts are the main fleet. Mary nodded, sharing a look with Chris. They took the bait. Now for Phase 2, execute flanking maneuver. While the scouts drew the Crawl attention, the actual Vexari warships slipped into the nebula, following paths Mary had calculated to minimize sensor detection. They surrounded the Crawl fleet undetected, The enemy vessels closed on the scouts' weapons, hot, expecting an easy victory over what they believed was a foolishly exposed Vexari fleet. All ships in position, the communications officer announced. Mary took a deep breath. Execute attack pattern Omega, now throughout the nebula. Vexari warships activated their weapons, simultaneously firing from all directions into the surprised crawl fleet. The first volley destroyed 30 enemy vessels before they could even respond. Chaos erupted among the crawl, their orderly formation dissolving as commanders struggled to determine where the attack was coming from. They're confused, Mary noted, watching the tactical display continue pressing the advantage target. Their command ships, the Vexari gunners, fired with precision, striking the larger crawl vessels identified as command ships. Within minutes, the enemy fleet lost cohesion ships firing blindly into the nebula or attempting to flee open a channel to the crawl fleet. Mary instructed, the communications officer complied, and Mary addressed the enemy crawl vessels. This is Tactical Commander Mary Campbell of the Vexari Defense Force. You are surrounded and outmaneuvered. Surrender immediately or face destruction. The Crawl Supreme Commander appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted with rage. Impossible. How did inferior prey outmaneuver the hunters? Mary allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps it's time you reconsidered who the predators truly are in this encounter. Your ships are disabled, your commanders eliminated. Surrender now and your crews will be spared. After a tense moment, the Crawl Commander lowered his head, a gesture of submission. The remaining crawl vessels powered down their weapon systems, signaling surrender. Aboard the Vexari flagship, cheers erupted from the crew. Admiral Zex turned to Mary, her compound eyes reflecting the nebula's swirling lights. In all my cycles of service, I have never witnessed such a victory. The Admiral said, you have saved not just Vexari lives but our civilization. Mary shook her head. It wasn't just me, Admiral. It was everyone working together. Vexari strength and human cunning as the fleet secured their prisoners and prepared to return home. Mary stood at the viewport watching the nebula's colors shift and change. She thought about Earth, so distant, yet whose lessons had proven so valuable. Chris joined her at the viewport. Not bad for a species the galaxy considered too weak to matter, she said with a grin. Mary smiled. Humans never had the luxury of being the strongest species on our planet. We survived by being the smartest now. Well, do the same among the stars. 1 year after the battle at Haldron Nebula, Mary stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed diplomatic station. Orbiting Earth, representatives from 12 alien species had gathered for the first Galactic Concord, a direct result of the Vexari-Human alliance that had defeated the Crawl. Mary watched as the delegates arrived, each species bringing their own customs, expectations, and prejudices. She now held the rank of Admiral in the Joint Defense Force, her tactical innovations having earned her respect throughout known space. Susan Chen, chief Earth diplomat, approached her, auburn hair styled in the latest fashion. Quite a gathering you've helped create, Admiral, she said, gesturing to the assembled aliens. Some of these species were actively hostile to humans just 2 years ago. Mary nodded, watching as a delegation of massive centauroid aliens conversed with diminutive gaseous beings contained in environmental suits. The Crawl threat united us. Necessity overcame prejudice, but maintaining these alliances in peacetime will be the real challenge. Susan smiled diplomatically, which is why your presence here is crucial. These species respect strength. You demonstrated that humans possess a different kind of strength, one they now value. Before Mary could respond, Admiral Zex approached her, insectoid form towering over both humans. The proceedings are about to begin. The Vexari, Admiral announced, the Galactic Council will hear testimony regarding the integration of humanity into galactic affairs. The three proceeded to the Grand Chamber, its architecture designed to accommodate beings of vastly different sizes and environmental needs. Mary took her place at the central podium. As the first speaker, representatives of the galactic community, she began, her voice carrying through the translator systems. I stand before you, not just as a human, but as someone who has served alongside the brave beings of many worlds. She paused, looking at the assembled delegates. 1 year ago, many of you viewed humans as physically inferior creatures unworthy of equal standing among the stars. Today, I ask you to recognize that strength wears many forms, and the viewing screens Mary displayed tactical data from the Huldran campaign, when, faced with a numerically superior crawl force, we prevailed not through overwhelming firepower but through innovation, adaptability, and cooperation qualities. Humans have developed throughout our evolution. Murmurs spread through the chamber as delegates discussed among themselves the Lithanian representative, a crystalline being that communicated through light patterns, pulsed brightly. Humans lack natural defenses, possess no significant strength advantages, and require extensive environmental support. How can such beings contribute meaningfully to galactic security? Mary had anticipated this question. Precisely because of those limitations, we developed different strengths. She answered, our ancestors survived on a planet filled with predators larger and stronger than themselves, not by outfighting them but by outthinking them. She activated another display showing early human history. We created tools, formed communities, solved problems we could not overcome through physical might. Alone, these same qualities make us valuable allies in facing galactic threats. The Murdarian delegate, a reptilian being similar to the Crawl, but with feathered crests, leaned forward. The Crawl believed themselves apex predators throughout this sector. Their defeat has created a power vacuum, one that concerns many worlds. Mary nodded, acknowledging the unspoken question. Humanity has no interest in filling that vacuum. We seek partnership, not dominance. Our proposal today is for a cooperative defense initiative, sharing technologies, strategies, and personnel among all member worlds. Admiral Zek stepped forward to stand beside Mary. The Vexary Empire endorses this proposal. She declared, our alliance with humanity has proven that different evolutionary paths can complement each other, creating strength greater than either could achieve alone. Over the next hours, delegates debated the proposal, some enthusiastic, others skeptical. Mary listened patiently, addressing concerns and explaining details as the session neared its end. The Ontari representative, a species of highly evolved avians whose empire bordered former crawl space, requested to speak. We have observed humanity with great interest. The Ontari said their rapid adaptation to galactic politics is unprecedented. Their capacity for innovation cannot be denied. The chamber grew quiet as the prestigious Ontari rarely offered opinions in galactic matters. I must ask, what guarantees do we have that these same qualities will not one day threaten our own civilizations? Mary considered the question carefully, aware that her answer could determine the future of human-galactic relations. No species can guarantee its future actions, she began. But I can tell you this: throughout human history, our greatest achievements came through cooperation. Not conquest. Our most prosperous periods through trade, not domination. She displayed images of Earth cities, peaceful and diverse. On our world, we learned through bitter experience that predatory behavior ultimately fails, that sustainable success comes through mutual benefit. I believe this lesson applies equally to the stars. Susan stepped forward, adding her diplomatic voice. Earth formally pledges to abide by the Galactic Charter, accepting all limitations. On military deployment and colonial expansion, we seek to learn from galactic civilization, even as we contribute to it. After her words, the chamber fell silent as delegates considered what they had heard. The vote, when it came, surprised even Mary. The Galactic Concord was approved by an overwhelming majority, establishing Earth as a full member of the galactic community with all rights and responsibilities. Later that evening, a celebration was held in the station's Grand Hall. Species that had once been enemies now conversed cautiously, but with growing comfort. Mary stood with Chris, observing the historic gathering. Quite a change from when I first stepped onto a Vexari ship, Chris noted, remembering how the aliens had viewed humans with barely concealed contempt. Mary smiled, watching as Susan expertly navigated between diplomatic groups. This is just the beginning. The real work starts now, building something lasting from this foundation. Admiral Zex joined them, mandibles clicking in amusement. You humans always looking to the next challenge before celebrating the current victory. Mary laughed. It's another human trait, always planning for tomorrow. The Admiral gestured to a group of young Vexari officers conversing with human counterparts. These younglings have requested assignment to Earth ships. They wish to learn human tactical thinking, a concept that would have been unthinkable before you joined our fleet. Little human, Mary watched the young officers, noting how naturally they interacted. Across species lines, they will build bridges we can only imagine, she said, feeling hopeful about the future generations would inherit us. The celebration continued. Delegates from various worlds approached Mary, some curious, others respectful, all acknowledging the role she had played in changing the galactic perception of humanity. The Ontari representative paused beside her, observing the gathering with keen eyes. I remain cautious about humanities. Rapid Rise Admiral, the avian said, but I cannot deny you have earned your place among the stars. Mary nodded in understanding. Caution is wise, Ambassador. Change is always uncertain, but I believe the diversity of life is its greatest strength. Each species bringing unique perspectives to shared challenges. The Ontari considered this a surprisingly mature philosophy from such a young species. Mary smiled. We had good teachers both on Earth and among the stars as the diplomatic station orbited her homeworld. Mary felt a sense of completion. Earth was no longer isolated but part of something greater. A community of wildly different beings united by common interests. Humans would never be the strongest species physically, but their unique strengths had earned them respect among the stars, a different kind of power but no less valuable.